Hello and welcome to IBTimes TV. I'm Leanna Brinder, Business Editor for the International Business Times. Joining me now is Dr. Jo Twist. She's the CEO of UK Interactive Entertainment. So hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today. Well, kicking off, it would be great to get an overview on how important the gaming industry actually is for the UK economy.
Well, the games industry is huge and it's growing really rapidly globally. I mean, faster than film and music. The consumer market in the UK is worth around about 3 billion. We're the biggest consumer market, one of the biggest consumer markets globally, we're third. And in terms of the industry, we're about fifth in the world after the likes of Japan and the US. And we've got more than 1 in 3 people playing games every day. 50 million hours worth of games are played in the UK alone. So it's absolutely huge.
Well, with that appetite for not only consumption but in terms of development, it seems that we're still though a bit behind in terms of women in the gaming industry. What have been the main, I suppose, hurdles for women entering it, even at like a junior level?
I think it really starts at quite a young age. If you look at the history of the games industry in the UK, it really has such an incredible heritage. You know, the games industry was really born here, and that was because of the BBC Micro and the ZX Spectrum, and kids, basically, who are now the industry legends in this country, got hold of those computers and those machines and started tinkering around. They could code, you know, very simply, and they found that they could create their own games. And everybody loves play. You know, play is such an important part of learning and part of growing up and part of being an adult. So they had the chance to tinker, to code their own games. We've lost that in the UK. We've been running a campaign for the last 2 years called the Next Gen Skills Campaign to try and bring that back and to try and create a new future, a new heritage of people who can code. So getting computer science onto the school curriculum at quite a young level, at GCSE level, as opposed to ICT, which is just about reading technology, has been incredibly important, and we've made that happen last year. So from 2014, people will be able to take up coding.
So how has the intake been though over the last year? Do you still find that it was still a bit of a struggle in terms of getting women to start, or younger girls to get on board this early on?
Well, I think it's always been an issue, and it's not just around sort of the games industry and coding. Every subject or career like engineering is suffering from a lack of half the workforce being trained up to go into these highly skilled jobs. And every single sector, every single business needs coders and needs people who are code literate, who can program all sorts of different systems. So it's actually a huge economic problem for us if we don't address it, because we are not training up half the available workforce at the moment with these skills. If we take some of the figures from A-level computer science take-up, last year there were only 241 girls nationally who took computer science A-level. It's crazy. It's not just a social problem, it's an economic problem. So we're hoping with the change in the curriculum, if we can skill up the teachers, the ICT teachers, give them confidence to teach coding in different ways that's going to hook in girls especially, then we're hoping that that will change.
Sure. I mean, when we look at the education level, there obviously needs to be changes and more promotion there, which has been happening. But do you think one of the barriers of girls wanting to get into it is because the industry itself, a lot of the products have been criticised for being, well, naturally more aimed for men. So that in itself is preventing a lot of people coding from an early age?
I think traditionally the industry has appealed to a certain type of what we consider to be a gamer. And the stereotypical image of a gamer is spotty teenager in their bedroom, and that's completely wrong now. We have more than 33% of the population playing games regularly. Half and half are now female, male. So the audience for games, because of new platforms that have emerged like smartphones, tablet devices and so on, has increased massively. So the diversity of games that are actually on the market has increased. And if you look at a lot of the young startup companies who are focusing on different platforms other than the AAA, the sort of traditional console games, we have a lot of women who are heading up those kinds of startups and those kinds of studios trying to do something different. Because everybody wants to recognize themselves in a game, or recognize their story, or recognize an experience. And women have different experiences, so do all sorts of different people. It's not just about spotty teenage boys anymore.
Well, that's a soundbite right there. But when it comes to, I suppose, one of the big topics, not just about women getting into, I suppose, the back office side of the games industry, but on the front facing, the player side, there's a lot of criticism in terms of gender identity within video games. How have you seen that develop over the last few years, especially?
I mean, I think Lara Croft has changed as a female protagonist who's a strong, playable character, but there certainly needs to be more. I think that's something that has been echoed within the industry. There's a lot of debate in the industry because you're seeing, a lot more kind of senior people recognising the market opportunity, and I think we're beginning to see that change. But I think sometimes the press just focuses on, and the criticism is just focused on a few kind of key titles and a few key genres. There are so many different genres of games. If you take something like Journey, for instance, which was a massive success for PlayStation last year, it was an incredible game, and it was made by an American company. We'd love that to be made by a UK company, but they were called That Game Company. And they created something that was riskier, and that risk paid off. But unfortunately, in these economic times, risk is very difficult to take. We're hoping that the tax breaks that are going to come in, hopefully touch wood, this year for the games industry will help kind of lower the risk for those kinds of companies who want to do something different, a bit more groundbreaking. And I think, the games industry is not just about the AAA console titles. It's a bit like the film industry. We have the big blockbuster franchises that do very, very well. In fact, two of the biggest selling entertainment products of all last year in 2012 were games, but we also have an independent sector, development sector, making incredibly interesting different kinds of games appealing to new audiences, and I think that's where we're seeing quite a lot of innovation in terms of female characters and in terms of experiences that are just different.
Sure. And I mean, talking on the tax break side, do you think the government is or has really done enough to really push gaming as a viable, rival to places like the US for it? Because of course, we used to develop a lot more here and that's kind of stopped. Do you think they've really done enough?
They are 100% committed to the tax breaks, and we deal a lot with decision makers and politicians, and we have incredible support from politicians across the party political spectrum, which is fantastic, and that's what we need. And that's because they realise that everything we ask for as a games industry, because we sit at the intersection between content and creativity and art and design, as well as technology and innovation and coding and programming, everything we ask for in terms of policy affects every industry, every sector, and is good for a digital economy. So they recognise that, they recognise the power of the industry, they recognise how successful it is economically.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And that was Dr. Jo Twist. She's the CEO of UK Interactive Entertainment.